welcome to the Art of Being Human. We've been talking about the development of people from birth until death, and I've talked about the prenatal functioning, and then the baby is born, and then he becomes a neonate. So I've given you some information about the neonate, but I never finished it, so I want to do that today. But first of all, I'm going to just review with you once again, as I probably am going to do frequently, the stages of development of the human being. And then we'll make that short, and then I'll review what I've told you about the neonate, and then go through the reflexes of the neonate, which I haven't done yet. So let's just take a look at this chart right here. The growth stages after birth of the human being. Starting off with the neonate, that's 1 month long. Then you have infancy, which is the end of the first month, to 15 or 16 months, which is usually the time when the baby starts walking. And then from the 16th month to 2.5 years, that's toddlerhood. Then preschool starts at about 2.5 years to about 6 years old, when the child would be in the first grade. Then you have childhood from 6 to 12 years, and you can have early, middle, and late childhood, which we'll get into when we get there. Then adolescence from age 12 to 20, adulthood from 20 to 65, and then you have young, middle, and late adulthood. Young adulthood from 20 to 35 years, middle adulthood from 35 to 50 years, late adulthood from 50 to 65, and then 65 on up is considered to be elderly. Okay, now we had started talking about the neonate, which is a month right after birth. You know, it's interesting when you consider that when the baby is born, they have all their cells, they have all their parts, they have all their limbs. If it's a normal delivery, they have everything. But nothing is necessarily working in sync. Everything's been functioning as it should in utero. When the baby is born, he's on his own. And so the body has to adjust to being in a whole different environment and working with the organs. There is such a concept as homeostasis. And homeostasis, if it's there, and it should be, all of the organs are working together. The whole human being is working together. But of course you don't get that in neonate. It hasn't had a chance to develop. So the body has to gear itself up to living in the outside world, and that takes time to do that. So what I had told you, and I'll review the neonatal time period, it's basically the baby is concerned with survival. Now, of course, he doesn't realize it, but the body is just trying to survive. It takes 2 to 4 weeks to adjust from fetal development before birth to postnatal, which is after birth. So that first month is just concerned with survival. Everything is new. Breathing is new. Before he was making breathing motions, but he wasn't on the outside world, so he was breathing and exhaling amniotic fluid. A digestion, he could swallow, but he was swallowing amniotic fluid, not regular food. The eyes the eyes are open now after birth, and the eyes opened before, but what could he see? The eyes would not be in focus. Now he has to try to focus his eyes. And he has to respond to the air around him. So this is a whole new thing about adjustment. It takes 2 weeks for the circulation to stabilize. It takes 10 days for the blood pressure to be normal. And they can only digest very simple foods and no starches. The lungs are congested, and they regurgitate their food a lot. They're not used to drinking milk or the mother's milk. They're not used to that. Or formula. So therefore the stomach's got to get used to something else in it besides amniotic fluid. So if you stop to think of it, there's a big period of adjustment. They cannot see for a while because their eyes aren't used to focusing, but that'll occur. They cannot hear for a few days because the ears have fluid in them. They suction it out when the baby is born. The breathing is noisy and shallow because the muscles aren't coordinated yet, and they cannot adapt to temperature changes just yet. The perspiration glands aren't going to work for a month, and they are susceptible to intestinal and respiratory problems, and they are also susceptible to skin infections. The skin didn't have any air around it. It just had the use in the amniotic sac. So therefore, that's a lot. Now, the behavior of the neonate, I don't think that we got into that. Most babies sleep most of the time. They have to. This is their period of adjustment, and this is a period of rapid growth. They will be groggy. They'll be groggy from the birth process, because what you have to realize, not only is the mother pushing the baby out, but the baby is working in the process to try to get out. My mother used to say, and she had another set of twins, and she said that it was much more difficult to give birth to babies that were stillborn, because they couldn't help in the process, so it made the cramping and the pain worse. Most babies will have fitful starts and shudders. It's like a startle reflex. They'll be fine, and suddenly they'll start jerking. It's not a seizure, but it'll be a jerk. And that's because the impulses from the nerves go all the way through the body. They're not stopped anywhere because the nervous system is immature. It's there, but it's immature. So when something sends out a signal, when a nerve cell sends out a signal, it goes everywhere. And then you get that jumping and that startle reflex that they have. That'll stop when the nervous system gets more mature. Now, what we did not talk about are the reflexes. There are a lot of reflexes that babies have. Now, those reflexes are not going to stay around forever. They're here for a few weeks and then they're gone. But I think doctors want to know if they have normal reflexes, because it will give them an idea as to the health of the baby and the development of the baby. You know, it's interesting when you hold the baby. If you take a baby that's fairly newborn and you put their little foot on a flat surface, they'll start to make motions like they're walking. They'll lift a foot, they'll lift the other foot like they're trying to walk. Now, of course, they cannot walk. There's no chance of that. But they're making the motions. It is true that a baby will practice before birth the kind of motions that he's going to be doing after birth. The swallowing, the breathing, even though it's amniotic fluid that they're breathing. Everything is like trying to rehearse what's going to happen after birth. So remember, these reflexes are temporary. This may sound a little bit technical to you, but it'll make sense when I explain it. The first reflex, and let me take this down because I have this chart. Let's see. Okay, I have it here already. Let me just fix this a little bit. The first reflex is the tonic neck reflex. Now, in the tonic neck reflex, you'll see babies sleeping this way. If their head is turned to the left arm juts out. If the baby is his head is turned to the right arm juts out. What's happening is that the arm that is in the direction of the head will stick out straight, and then the other arm will go behind the back, if that makes any sense. And then the legs get turned up, they're drawn up. It looks like a fencing position. So the baby's head is to the right, the arm sticks out straight to the right. The other arm is behind the head like this, and then the legs come up. If the baby's head is to the left arm goes out, and then the right arm is behind the head, and the legs draw up. It's like a fencing position, but this is a reflex, and this is the way the baby is going to sleep. It's called tonic neck reflex, and it'll be around for a few weeks. Then there is the sucking reflex. The sucking reflex is just sucking so they can eat. It's automatic with them. If they're going to nurse, if they're going to have a baby's bottle, which is the other alternative, of course, they're going to have to learn how to suck. So it's natural for them to suck, and that happens to them, and this is the way they get food in their system. Then you have the Moro reflexes. When they're crying, the whole body flails. When a young infant cries, the legs are moving, the arms are moving, the whole body flails. This, of course, is due to the immature nervous system. It's like I said before with the startle reflex, they jump. Well, when they're crying, every limb of the body is involved in that because they can't stop it. The nerve impulses go everywhere. So it's a very immature nervous system. The tearless crying, when they cry, the tear glands may not work for several months. So when they're crying, you don't have normal tears. It's dry, because it's going to take a few months for the tear glands to work. Then they have a grasping reflex. If you put, say, something by the hand, they're going to grasp it. I'll do it with this hand. At any rate, if you put something here, the baby will just grasp it. That's a reflex. It's not like they have any control of it, but that becomes very firm, and that will disappear within a few weeks, and they won't be doing that grasping reflex anymore. Then you have the Babinski reflex, and this is the toes will spread when they're touched. If you touch the baby's toes, they flare out like this. This is normal for the baby. It's a reflex action. They have no control of it, and it will disappear. So those are the types of reflexes that they have. Let me just go over them once again. We can use this chart to do that. Tonic neck reflex, one hand that goes in the direction of the head, wherever the head is pointing. The other hand is behind the head, and the knees are drawn up. The sucking reflex is just simply to be able to eat, to be able to get food in their system because they'll either be nursing or using the bottle. The Moro reflex is when the body flails when they're crying. The entire body gets involved, and that's natural. That's due to an immature nervous system. You have tearless crying basically because there won't be any tears. The tear ducts will not be working, maybe for a few months. The grasping reflex is a firm grip when the hand is touched. That's just a reflex that will eventually go away. And the Babinski reflex is when you touch the toes will spread out. And that will go away also. And I want to mention once again, if you put the baby on a flat surface, you have to hold him up, you have to support him, and let his little foot, one of his little feet, touch a hard surface, and he'll start making walking motions with his feet. Of course, he can't walk, but that's also a reflex. So you have all of those reflexes in that baby, and they'll certainly be observable on that first month in the neonatal stage. The average baby is about 7 pounds when they're born, and they're about 16 inches long. The skull bones are not joined together yet. They're there, but they're not joined together. So they will have soft spots in their head. If you find a soft spot, do not poke it with your finger because you could go right into the brain and cause brain damage. So you have to be very, very careful, especially on the side, that when you touch them, you don't stick your hand too close to the brain. If you stick it in, make sure you touch them so that there's no danger if you're getting your hand in deeper, because if you get your hand in deep, you're actually going to cause brain damage. The bones are not going to join for about 18 months. So you see the amount of development that has to occur in the baby in order to get him so that he's fully functioning in the outside world. So those are the reflexes. Now, after you have the neonatal stage, you get into the infancy stage. And the infancy stage is after that first month, going from the first month to the end of about the 15th or 16th month when the baby starts walking. 15 months is considered to be the average age for walking, although many, many babies start walking sooner. The trend has been lately that the babies walk sooner and toilet training comes a little later. So there are some adjustments according to what society is like. And the babies, I think maybe because the nutrition may be superior, may be developing a little faster because many babies walk before 15 months, but it still is considered to be the average age for walking. So let's look at the infant. There are different types of growth in this period. Now here again, this is going to sound a little bit technical, but if you think about it, it's going to make perfect sense. These are the types of growth that occurs in a baby in infancy. The first type is called differentiation. Okay, I have it up in the chart. Differentiation is a growth goes from simple to complex. Well, that makes sense. Everything goes from simple to complex. The organs become more complex as they grow older. The eyes become more able to focus. Everything just seems to be more in sync. The baby can move more and eventually will be able to sit up and crawl and walk. So all the growth occurs from simple to complex. It's called differentiation. That's the first type of growth that an infant has. Excuse me. Excuse me 1 second here. The next type of growth is called discontinuous growth. Each organ grows at a different rate at a different time. The organs are growing, but they're not growing exactly the same. Some grow fast, some grow slow, and then they intertwine with each other, and they have different types. So let's go into functional subordination. That's really what I wanted to get into next. The integration occurs and the organs work better with each other. That's functional subordination. Organs working better with one another. And that, I've mentioned to you homeostasis before. When you get organs working together, the baby is going to be healthier, and that's going to be necessary as the baby grows for the organs to work together. So that's functional subordination. They become more coordinated in their functioning. Then you have asynchronous growth, which is right here. The organs grow at different rates. The brain is going to grow the fastest. The limbs are going to grow the slowest. The organs that are the most important for survival, digestion, breathing, and brain activity, liver, and so forth, they're going to grow the fastest because the baby needs them the most. The baby's not going to be walking until probably a year and a half or something like that. And so therefore the limbs don't need to be finely tuned at this young age, but they need good, clear digestion, good, clear brain development. And so therefore you're going to have this growth where these organs, which are most important to the baby's survival and growth, will become the first to become developed, so that therefore they will be growing the fastest. Okay. The trunk and the head will go faster than the limbs. So if you look at a baby, the head seems to be bigger than the rest of the body, but it contains the brain development, which orders what the organs do, and it's critical that the brain be developed first before anything else, and the limbs will catch up later. What's not needed for survival will grow at its own pace. It's not going to not grow, but it'll grow in its own pace, and it's not going to catch up until later on when it's needed. By the time the baby is walking, you're going to find that they're going to have more detailed abilities in the arms and the legs, but first the trunk has to come first. Discontinuous growth. This is when the organs grow at different rates at different times. Now, some organs grow faster than others. We've already said that. But in this discontinuous growth, some organs grow fast, and then they slow down, and then they grow fast again, and then they slow down. We're talking about one organ. And all our organs do this. They grow fast and then they slow down. They go fast and then they slow down, depending upon what the other organs are doing. But it's all pre-planned. It's the way that it's supposed to be. If you remember, I don't know if I talked to you about this or not, but in the uterus, if a mother is sick, the baby might be affected by her illness, especially like measles and illnesses like that. It can hurt the baby, but what part of the baby is going to be hurt? It's going to be the part of the baby that's growing the fastest. So if you get measles or some kind of an infectious disease that can cross that brain-blood barrier and get into the baby, if the brain is growing the fastest, the brain will be damaged and you may have retardation. If it's something else, you may have another deformity instead. So the organs that are growing the fastest at the time that the mother is sick are the ones that are going to be influenced the most. And so you can't predict what it's going to be, but the mother really needs to stay healthy, and she needs to stop smoking, and she needs to not use drugs, because all of that will influence the baby. But where it influences it will depend upon which organ is growing the fastest. And the organ that's growing the fastest is going to be the one that's affected. So then the next one is cephalocaudal growth. This is growth from head to foot. I've mentioned before that the head grows the fastest, and so the body grows, the torso grows the fastest. Growth is going to go from head to toe. The head and the head area and the torso is going to be the most important for the child's development and for their survival. So they're going to grow fast. It's like it's all been pre-planned, which it has. Fingers will develop faster than toes. Hand development will be faster than foot development. So the cephalocaudal growth is one of the basic things to remember in terms of the child's growth. Now, what I think I'm going to do, we're getting close to the end of time. I'm going to close it here. I'll do a little review of this next time, and then we're going to go on to other kinds of growth. But this is basically, these first 6 are important. There is 1 or 2 more to handle, but we'll do that next time around. So we'll close it here. Please join me next time.